Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode, whatever platform you're listening to us on, wherever in the world you're listening to us from. As always, thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you guys for sharing this show around, and thank you for tuning into this episode. I really like that we have the opportunity to do this episode and have it come out before the season starts, because there's so many of you who are listening who perhaps are in a new position, maybe a new head coaching position, maybe you are stepping into a new role, maybe a new division, a new region, a new conference. And even if you're not, you're still facing a different team than you were facing the year before. And game planning and being able to plan is so important in order to be successful and hopefully for you guys to have a great season. So we're going to dedicate this episode specifically about planning for the next opponent, what goes into that, what is the process for that, about scouting and planning, and making sure that you're completely ready for the team that you're about to face. So again, I'm super excited that we're doing this episode before the season starts, because I know we're going to exchange some really awesome ideas and maybe some things that you will want to implement into your coaching practices as the season is about to start. So I'm very happy to be joined by quite the busy man. Not only does he coach offensive line, but he's also head basketball coach at Gilbert High School. My guest today is Coach Ozzie Exume. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on here. Excited to just share some ideas.
I know you're kind of for a second kind of putting away your football hat right now and putting on the basketball hat, even though you're in the thick of football season. So I appreciate you doing that. Let's go ahead and talk about your basketball journey and your coaching journey, Coach. Well, where's the game taking you? Where's your coaching journey taking you, and what led you to Gilbert?
I'm originally from Georgia. Played high school basketball near Atlanta, but then I ended up playing football in college and at a Newberry College. And then as I got out of college, I have my bachelor's in education, and I got my minor in coaching. And coaching is not just sport coaching; is life coaching and all that. So I got into teaching. I got a job as a primary school teacher, 4K through second grade. It will change your whole entire life, teaching that age group. And I was able to be an assistant basketball coach on varsity at Gilbert High School and coach of football as well. And then a couple of years ago, I was able to get the head coaching job at Gilbert High School for basketball. And so it's kind of taken me, I've seen where the program was. I've also seen where it could be. And so this is a place that it's a school, it's an area, a community that's heavy football and heavy baseball. Our baseball programs won 5 state championships in the last 17, 18 years or so. Our football team has won 60 games in the last 6.5 years. So it's one of those things where those are the two driving forces. And I'm just really passionate about kids feeling success in basketball. And I came from a successful program at Central Gwinnett in Georgia. And I feel like, if we pour into these kids the right way, with love, with patience, with true integrity and true passion, that they can be successful as well.
Awesome. Now, as you mentioned there, you are coaching offensive line. You're a football coach, and I always like to kind of pick the brains of those who coach multiple sports and kind of know what they take from one sport and use in the basketball sense. So let me ask you about your experience being a football coach. How do you use what it is that you teach with being an offensive line coach? How does that kind of translate, or what do you take away from that you use when you're coaching basketball?
So one of the things, the offensive line spot is such a technique and habit driven, spot. We do something at our school called Everydays, and I stole that from Coach Williams, who coached offensive line at Newberry College, who's now at North Carolina's Central. And so it's one of those things where there's a set of drills that we do at least 3 to 4 times per week. And when you're first learning those drills, those 3 or 4 drills are staples to what you're going to do, as an offensive lineman with the plays that we run, the things that we ask them to do. And I always tell them, I said, guys, it's not just doing these drills and we call them every day because we do them a whole bunch. It's about creating habits, practice habits that turn into game habits. And then in basketball, it's the same thing. I've kind of set a precedent on doing an X amount of drills. There's dribble drills, there's layup drills that we do every single day. And, even if we do it, if we cut it short or if we have a short practice, we do those drills because it's stuff that's going to happen in the actual game. We're doing a dribble move or dribbling left or right-handed, making a left-hand layup or right-hand layup. And for them, by mid-year, the kids are like, this is tedious. We're doing this every day. But what they don't get, you're creating habits that if you're in a situation like one of my favorite drills is a 4 dribble layup. So they get the ball on one baseline. They have 4 dribbles to get a layup on the other side. And so what it's trying to show is we're taking, a practice type habit and doing something. If you're on a fast break, you don't have 7 dribbles to get a fast break score.
Right.
So we try to get things done in 3 to 4 dribbles full court. And it's the same thing in the football offensive line wise. When we're doing our blocking drills, we're creating environment that is just like one in a game. So when we're doing our, we call it kick slides and power steps and pass protection, we're creating something that's going to look the exact same way on 3rd down and 15 in the football game where we're asking you to pass pro. So it has really taught me to be very intentional about the practice habits of doing things right, of making sure that we're doing things in practice at the same level that we will in a game. And people that know me and the staff that I work on, if it's a habit that you break in practice, I'm gonna let you know about it. And it's something that is very important that we continue to do. And I think just doing offensive line in football has taught me to really, really just to put a huge importance on that.
I like the saying about like practice makes permanent, right? Kind of like habit building, like you talked about, and it makes sense, right? The things that you repeatedly do in practice are the things that you're probably going to be repeating and doing the most in a game. So like it's transferable and it's something that is intentional because as a coach that this is going to be stuff that they're going to be using all the time when they're playing. So no, that makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to follow up. Because you talked about how successful the football program was. And so I was curious, is there anything that you've taken kind of from the way the football program is run or the culture of the football program? Is there anything that you've kind of taken from there that you've kind of implemented or infused within the basketball program?
Absolutely. So we got to Gilbert High School for football. So our head coach, Chad Alipart, he was actually a graduate of Gilbert High School. And so he went to college, he coached, and he's coached other places. Then he came back here 7 years ago and pretty much hired new staff. I was fresh out of college and he hired me. And, that previous year they won 2 games. Wow. Since then, our worst year has been 7 wins, and we've had as much as 12 wins in the season and played for a lower state championship. That's the game prior to the state championship game. And we've been very successful. We've put kids in school. But one thing that I've learned from him is that you can't cheat the whole process. We were fortunate. We went from 2 wins to 10 wins in 1 year. But the one thing that changed is, we've put a huge importance on the weight room. So I'm also the assistant strength coach there. And so we have put a real high, importance on the weight room of making sure in the summertime that we are there. And that's coaches and players too. And the little things that build up to a winning games, a repetition is one of the things that our kids get, irritated with, like, oh, we've run this play 1,000 times already. Well, we're going to run it 1,001 times after this play because it's one of the things where we're going to run our stuff. And the thing I love is, our football team, our coaching staff, our game plan is really authentic to us. And we don't change who we are depending on who we play. And so going back to how basketball was, the weight room was not a huge importance. Kids could go 4 years and not have a weight training class. And I'm just like, that mind boggles me. And so now, we have summer workouts where it's 4 days a week. But we have a basketball weight training class year round during the school year. So it's one of those things where we have kind of pushed the envelope of making sure our kids are exposed to getting stronger, and we're not skipping any steps. We haven't won immediately. I'm going into year 3. We haven't won immediately, but in year 1 we matched the 2-year total of the 2 previous seasons of wins, and that felt good for the community. But I'm one of those guys. I'm never satisfied, so there's always more I want to keep on pushing for. And so we're not trying. We're trying not to skip steps. So we're trying to develop our kids in middle school. We're trying. So I'm showing up at middle school games. I'm showing up at middle school tryouts. Trying to make sure that I'm as involved as possible, and the kids, they know me, they see me, they know, hey, I want to be as positive of a person for them in their basketball mind, and I want to keep them playing basketball. So we're working every day to just try to be better and to try to have our kids see some success.
I love the weight training aspect there. For them to also to do a class on it, man, that's awesome. I think every program should have something like that, where their players can get in the weight room like that.
The beauty of our school and our administration, our principal is a big fitness guy, and so we actually have weight training focused class for in terms of having a sport class where your team is in that class. We have it for football, baseball, basketball, and softball.
Oh wow.
It really helps out.
I can imagine. No, that's great. All right, Coach, let's get into some scouting and planning. So what got into your passion for scouting and planning for the next opponent? What was kind of the process when you realized that this was a real vital part of coaching and was essential to being a successful coach?
I think so. I really found this out in college. When you're an athlete, you just get the game plan. You don't see what goes on behind it. So I had an office coordinator who is now the office coordinator at South Carolina State, who at times would allow me to just to see kind of their thought process on things. And you fast forward to when I was a coach. I think for coaches, you're always seeking answers for the questions that come up during games, and so that's something I take from the football side. In a football, you swap film, and so for hours on end, I'll spend on a Saturday roughly 3 to 4 hours breaking down film. And so it's one of those things where you want to know what the other team does when you do this. And so that's something I've learned from Coach Leapart. I mean, he is a film junkie. And so he looks and he sees everything. And so we come up and we meet for a football on Sunday, and he has all the answers, right? So it's one of the things I dived into basketball a few years ago, and I don't know how it is where you are, but here in basketball you don't have to swap film, so there's no film swapping. So when we're playing a team on Friday, I'm on the phones and texts instead of emails. So a coach here across the state, hey, you play these guys, I'll give you this film if I can get your film.
Yeah.
And once I get it, it is literally me. I'm nose deep. I'm trying to find out who subs in for who. I'm trying to find out what kid likes to shoot where. I'm trying to find out what their favorite sets are, and then we build our practice around. All right, let's look at their strengths. Let's make their strength the weakness. Let's beat their strengths. And if they're going to beat us, it's going to be doing the stuff that they are great at. And so I just love, as a coach, you're not playing anymore. So this is my chess game against the opposing coach. This is the game that gets me nice and riled up to play, is the mind game of the tick and tack. If you're going to choose this, I got this for you and all that. So that's the part I absolutely love.
So you're talking, if I caught you correctly, like hours, right? That you're going through this process of breaking down film.
Oh yeah, it's so for basketball, basketball we play about 2 games a week, and sometimes it's 3. And so if we play a team on Tuesday, my Sunday, I'll bring the kids in on Sunday afternoon or Sunday night, just have a shoot around. We're not going to focus on anybody else. We're just going to focus on us. Let's shoot. Let's get some stuff going. And then that Sunday night, I go home and I'm breaking down the opponent's film. And so Monday, I'm breaking down film even some more. And then by Monday afternoon, before practice, I'm going in with a plan. And during the class, I may, hey, look, I saw this, guys. Let's work on this for this time. But it's a process. There's notes. I got a notebook. I got a bunch of notepads that I'm writing down notes. I'm looking at stuff that maybe if it's something our player, we run a 5-out, sometimes a 4-out spacing offense. We're pacing space, so we're trying to space guys out. We're trying to play fast and we're trying to attack the basket. I love the 3-point shot. So if we can attack to get a 3, it's always good. If we can attack to get a score, that's great. But I want the best shot and the first opportunity at a good shot. And I'm looking at who was a player that doesn't like to guard. If I find out a player on your team that's not interested in playing a defense, he's going to see the basketball a whole lot. And then if you have a big that's not willing to switch, he is going to be in a lot of action. If your help side guy is not great, we're going to try to pick on him as much as we can by putting him on the backside of action and then running a backside action off of that. So there's all those things that I'm trying to learn about the other team to where I can go out there and tell you, hey, this guy is going to do this, so we're going to do this because I've seen it on every film that we've played. So
no one is able to hide on the other team. That's kind of what you're trying to expose and see who's trying to be snuck away somewhere and then hope that they're not noticed.
I will go down on my notebook and I'll write down notes. On each kid, I'll put their number down. Heck, I'll find out their full name. I'll look at their Twitter. I want to see, hey, is he hurt? Is he focused on basketball? Today. It's one of those things where if I see a kid, I say, look, if this kid's guarding you, then we're going to post up. And we're going to force the opposing team to change their rules on how they want to guard and try to trap us or double team us. And then, that's where we can get open shot. But we played, we're in a really hard region. So we played some super athletic teams. The team that won our region last year lost in the state championship, but we had another team. So our region just changed. So one higher level team just dropped down to our level. And so they're very athletic and probably more athletic than us. So it's really a mind game. It's really how can we camouflage what we want to do? How can we confuse them? How can we make them think about basketball instead of playing basketball? So that's always our game plan.
And so when you're, I've talked to coaches before who've said, oh, you can game plan for me, but it won't matter because if you see what we do on film, we can just go and do our next, we have a counter for that and we can go into that and whatever you see on film, it doesn't matter because we can work around that. Like, do you find that, how true of a statement do you think that is? Or do you think when you see film that you still are like, it doesn't matter what like counters you might have, like there are certain like tendencies that your team likes to do? Like, what would you say to a coach who feels like, oh, like I'm unscoutable because we can just go into all these different sets or all these different like looks out of anything?
Well, that's, every coach wants to feel that way,
Yeah, I do
have all the answers, right? And so, but I've told my coaches, sometimes it's not the X and O's. Sometimes it's nothing to do with X and O's. It's the Jimmy and the Joes. It's the like if you got dudes that are just better than my dudes, I can go out there, and create the most dynamic plan. And sometimes your players just better than my players. They're gonna make things work. But the one thing I'll say is, if you're gonna beat us, it won't be your plan A or your plan B. So if you spend a lot of time practicing plan C, then you'll be fine. If you don't, then y'all gonna be learning plan C on the fly. And so, for example, we played a team last year. We played them twice, and the first time we played them, it was my fault. It was my fault. It was a poorly scheduled game. It was a third game in 4 nights. We had just came off a super emotional game against our rival where the gym was packed. We blew a 15-point lead, but then came back and won. It was, everybody's emotional.
Oh, yeah.
We ended up playing less than 24 hours later. And so we're flat. We're terrible. We played decently well in the first half, but then the team runs out of the gym. So we lose by 30 points. And I told the guys, I said, guys, this is my fault. Don't, you can feel bad that we lost, but I guarantee this will not happen the next time. So we wait about a month or so. We play them again. This whole time, I have absolutely gone nuts about watching this game. I've watched that game that we lost to about 30 points 10 times. And so I go out there and we have a plan. And one of my favorite things to do on a defense is we will box and one or face guard your best player in a second. And so they had two kids that could really, they had a kid, he had 35 the first time, was hitting threes from the volleyball line. Like, it was ridiculous. And I told him, I said, look, if he comes near the volleyball line, we guard him. They scored 70-something points the first time. Well, we were leading that whole game that second time. We're executing our plan, very well. And we ended up losing that game over, there was a missed officiating call, but there was also some just really bad execution offensively by us in the half court. But we lost that game 46-43. And I told the guys, we did our plan extremely well until the last minute. We were winning until the last minute. And so, it's high school kids, and they were so dug deep in our plan for so long, for 3 or 4 days. I think they mentally just ran out of gas. And so, but that team loved to spread it out. They run a lot of ball screen action, and they love going middle. And that's type of thing. If they get the ball in the middle, things are great. Well, our game plan, we were just like, I didn't care about your strong hand. I didn't care about none of that. Our rule was simple. That ball never touches the middle of the floor, whether it's a pass or a dribble drive. I don't care if you give him a straight line drive near the baseline to score. That ball does not touch the middle. And they executed that perfectly to where they couldn't score. They were confused. And they ended up winning that game because they hit some timely threes, and they had an 8th grader playing varsity basketball who hit 3 free throws with 40 seconds left down.
Wow.
That gave a lead.
So like, I think one of the takeaways that I kind of get from this is that as a coach, you have to celebrate the victories, even if they're not necessarily on the scoreboard. If you made a team work really hard and had them work and get out of their primary action and go into their secondary or tertiary or whatever the case may be, and you really made them have to dig deep and labor and go through different sets and different actions in order to try to win, like that in and of itself is something that should be celebrated. And I think is something that coaches should let their players know about, even if it is a loss, just maybe like how hard that other team had to work just to, get that victory. I think that might be something that's definitely worth celebrating.
Absolutely. Especially when you're in a position, especially if you're a new coach. If you're a new coach who is taking a team that hasn't won, that hasn't been to, the 2 previous years prior to me taking that job, they were 3-18. So there was not a whole lot to cheer about. And so one of the biggest problems, and I was an assistant on those staffs, and one of the biggest problems is our kids, they weren't able to complete the game plan and, not stick to the game plan. And so I told our guys that night, I said, look, I'm mad that we lost, because I truly believe that we played well enough to win. But I'm gonna tell you, we executed a game plan and cut their point total by 30 or more points, which was our goal. Now, that's good. Yes, that's great. Now the next step is you got to finish that basketball game and win it. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to teach your kids how to win, but also you're just saying, great job for doing the thing I asked you to do that was hard, but you did it anyway. So that part, you're definitely right. That there's a give and take. And as a coach, you're crazy. You want to win every game, but you have to celebrate the small victories, even if it's not in that win column.
I mean, I've had games that I feel like I've won that I've coached where I only lost by like 10 points, just because I knew that it would be very possible to lose that by 40. And then
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've been in that sense too, where there's games that you won that you feel like you lost because like, wait, we only won by how much? Like, oh man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So going through all the film and breaking through, like you said, not just the actions, but also the players themselves and all the different mannerisms. There's so much that goes into your game plan. How do you take all of that and then communicate that to your players? Is it just communicating it through the things that you do in practice? Is there actual like verbal or written communication about what to expect? How does the process go to you getting that information so your players know it and are ready to implement it?
So there's one thing that, when I took over that I wanted to implement, and this was really and I truly encourage every coach to do this, because it helps you to get a pulse of your team. And also it gives you a platform to be clear and concise about what your plan is for this next opponent. So we have team meetings once or twice a week, at least one time a week. And in the team meetings, I have it written down on my little sheet. The first thing that we talk about is the state of the team. So we're talking about a record, what we've accomplished so far, what we need to work on, and then we will go into a individual player. And I tell that whole team, I said, look, if leave your feelings in that hallway, because once you walk into this meeting room, this is where we're going to be real, blunt, respectful, but we're going to be real. And we go through each player and we in front of the whole team and tell them, hey, this is where we need you to improve. And this is where, where we need you to keep doing this. And we challenge each kid. And we ask our players, hey, what do you need to see from us as coaches? What do we need to do for us to be better? And then what do you think our team needs to do as a team? And then so we go into that. And then I go into our game plan for our next opponent. And I tell them, look, guys, this is what we've seen. We'll watch film and we'll say, look, this is where I feel like this is our best opportunity to win. And we'll say, and we'll figure out names. A lot of times we're playing kids that know each other. So they say, oh, I know him from AAU. He can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And so, well, that's what you say, but the AAU version of him and the school version of him are two different versions. Okay?
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. So, but we go and we talk about our game plan, and we talk about things that is close. I never stray away too far from who we are and identity wise, but we may need to take a little detour in one or two ways. And so we will go out and we'll go through stuff. Any plays that I feel like, hey, these 4 or 5 set plays are going to be very good looks for us. On a defense, I truly believe that we're going to do this. If this does not work, our plan B is going to be this. If this does not work, our plan C is going to be this. And it's one of those things where we got to know what we do and do it well. We need to force this team to do this, and we need to force this kid to take this type of shot. We're going to close out hard on this kid, and we're going to close out soft on this kid, or we're going to force this kid baseline every time, and we're going to force this kid. And we're going to front this kid in the post. Or if this kid is somebody that we're not worried about in the post, then we're going to let him catch in the post, and we're not going to double. We're going to play straight up, and we're going to live with him beating us. And so they know clear as day, this is where we stand. So if it's a Wednesday and we play on Friday, and Wednesday practice is over, and I feel like, man, I don't like this as much.
Yeah.
I'll take it from kids. If kids say, hey, coach, is there any way that we can run this like this against them? And my only question when a kid has that, I say, why? What makes you say that?
Yeah.
And I always told them, if you cannot say, I've seen it, if you say, well, I think I know this kid from way back in the day and we do it, I'm not taking that answer. What did you watch on film, or what did you watch on in person that makes you feel like this will change? And if I get an answer that is good, that is thoughtful, I feel like that kid has actually paid attention to look, we will consider changing it. I'm all in. Let's make our kids very comfortable and confident in what we're putting out there on the floor. And so they will hear it in the meeting, and of course they'll hear it at the end of practice. We do a circle up at the end of practice, and we will do it at the end of practice. We'll do it to start that next practice, of course, the game day talk.
It's kind of like as a classroom teacher, it's like what you just said. It's like, what's your evidence, right? Like, what did you see on film, sort of thing. Like, can't go off your like gutter intuition. Like, what is it you saw? But I think that also helps, like, with the players, right? giving them a little bit of buy-in into film. Like if they really like believe something or they have a thought or opinion on something, it kind of forces them, they got to dive into the film and really dissect it the way
Absolutely.
that you do. And I think that the more we get players looking at film in a meaningful way, I mean that can help exponentially with them as
Oh yeah.
basketball players, right?
And we do, we use Huddle. And so it's one of those things where I can check how much film they've watched.
Yeah.
So I always tell them, hey, there's no film being watched during your class time. If you're in a classroom, that's no. I said, but while we're in basketball class and we finish our workout, there's 20 minutes left in class, and maybe you don't feel like shooting. Go watch film. Or if you want to watch film together, I'll sit down right next to you and watch film. We'll talk about it. But occasionally every week I'll go on Huddle, I go on team management, and I'll go look and say, this kid has not watched film. And I won't say anything, I won't make it a big deal. And we'll get to practice something, and I'll say, hey, what does this guy like to do with the post? And I'll ask the kid, I know he hasn't watched not 1 second of film. He's like, oh, he likes to do this. I say, yeah, bull crap, because you have no idea. You're guessing. You're absolutely guessing. You have no proof. The only film that you've watched is a film that we watch as a team. I said, if you're not willing to take, and I'm not asking you to watch 4 or 5 hours of film like me. That's craziness. I'm asking you to watch. If you watch 30 minutes of film on an opponent, that's all I'm asking. 30 minutes of your own time, and then we're gonna watch about 40 minutes as a team. I feel like you've done your part, but you cannot expect, when you're messing up plays or you don't know what the person is going to do, you can't hold anybody accountable as a team captain or a player if you're not putting in that same work. And so I try to challenge them, and I know, I mean, they're kids, they rather be on Snapchat and Instagram and all that other stuff. I get it. I said, y'all, but if we play on Friday and we play the game on Tuesday, you have Wednesday, 15 minutes over the course of 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Just put your phone down and pull your laptop out and watch film for 15 minutes. That's it. And block it. Be intentional about film. Like, watch it. Don't just sit there and watch the fight that happened in the stands or the cheerleaders dancing in the court. Watch the actual game. Be intentional and see it and learn. So that's always a battle. That will continue to be a battle. But I think that we're making good strides towards that. So,
well, the ones who are putting in that work and the ones that are watching film and being able to, not only implement what they see on film in practice, but also come up with suggestions. I mean, I think just naturally those players are going to end up being rewarded for the work that they're doing. And so it will kind of be one of those things where you kind of have to know that, yeah, you do have to be watching film if you want to get rewarded by, being successful, getting playing time. Hopefully the results will just kind of speak for themselves.
That's right. Well, it's those same kids that say, hey, coach, I want to play college basketball. I said, dude, like there's something called habits, and there's habits that your college coach is going to want you to have. And one of the habits is, of course, being on practice. I always tell our guys, if practice starts at 4:00, if you walk into the gym at 4:00, you are late. If you walk into the gym at 3:59, you are late. And what we do is, for every second past the start time of practice that you show up, we run a sprint. So, and I tell our kids, now the team does team sprints during that time, and then the player that's late. So, I added a kid that, kind of time thing that said that he couldn't get to practice on time. First of all, we're at school all day, so I don't know how you can't get to practice on time. And so he comes to practice 4:15. Well, that's 15 for him individually. That's 15 sprints, and he cannot play in a basketball game until those sprints are made up, and that those sprints cannot be made up during practice time. And the team has sprints because he's late. And so, and it's their fault that he's late because they didn't tell him, and they haven't made it, they obviously are not important enough to that kid to be there on time. And I tell them those are habits that coaches are looking at. Watching film is a habit that coaches are looking at. And in football, we give our kids a game plan on Tuesday. Every offensive player, they get a game plan of the plays that we want to run, the players that they're playing against. What formations are we going to run plays in, and what plays are we going to run to whom in those formations? It's a cheat sheet. So and they get punishment if they leave their game plan in the classroom or on the floor. If we find their game plan, Lord be with them. But it's one of those things where you have a cheat sheet of what we're thinking, of what our mindset is, and this is how we're giving it to you. Cherish it, review it, study it, so there's no questions on Friday.
I imagine just for a lot of coaches also, just as like a personal thing, it must drive some coaches crazy to think about, man, like what if I had this when I was playing, you know?
Oh my,
What if I
yeah.
had access to all this stuff, right?
Yes, yes. It takes, and I just feel like it makes the kid feel involved in what's happening. And maybe if the kid's more involved, they'll play a little harder. They'll sacrifice more. They're willing to do the extra mile if they feel involved. I don't want to come off as the dictator who coaches these kids. You do this because I said this. I want this. I want to be a coach that, yeah, I'm the head honcho. I get the final say, but I want to hear what you say as well. And so if you earn the right to say it, because all rights are earned, if you earn that right to say that, you've done the work, the background work to have a voice, then I want to hear it. But there's a weight that goes on with that voice. You got to be able to explain, and got to be able to be thoughtful in what you're trying to say, so we can, as a team, look at it and do it. So
Yeah, excellent. How do you alluded to this a little bit, and I wanted to kind of pick your brain on this about how you kind of stay true to what you like to run offensively and defensively, and kind of stay true to your own, philosophies on offense and defense, while at the same time being able to adjust and kind of do things based on who it is that you're playing. What are like some core offensive and defensive principles that you will like always implement, and those won't change regardless of like who you play?
So offensively, we're gonna play with some pace, and it's kind of like a thing where over the last 2 years, we haven't been a good half-court basketball team. I think part of that problem is we haven't had a person to kind of be the ball handler and creator. We've had guys that were probably best off ball, but due to our personnel had to be on ball. And then we don't have, we don't have a true big in there that's going to, consume the defensive eyes, and we have to play him a certain way and play off him. So we play with pace to get easy baskets. We got some kids that can shoot. And so my whole thing is, if you're dribbling the basketball, it's with a purpose. So it's either to drive, it's either to create, or it's either to move with the floor. And so offensively, I'm going to stay true to 5 out. And in some variations, we may be a 4 out and 1 in. If we have a big, really, it's not going to help us outside, but we're going to stay as spaced out as possible. And the main reason why, if we can get a midline drive, we're going to force you to cover as much ground as possible to get to that next pass. So that won't change. And so it's really the basis of our offense. I'm a Dallas Maverick fan, so I call it Dallas. And it's the base of our offense, and we have quick hitters off of that. And so our kids know, and I tell every ball handler, don't look at me to get a play call. Okay, if they're playing man, what we have game plan. Our man, what it be. If you stare at me looking for a play call, I'm going to stare at you. Each other. I want our ball handlers to feel empowered, to trust themselves, to call a play and run it. And if it's wrong, we'll fix that. But if it's right, you're going to feel the feeling of, hey, I got this right, because I don't want to be yelling plays all game. I want you to be able to play basketball and know what you're looking at. And then on a defense, I'm not conflicted, but when I was in high school as a freshman, we ran nothing but zone. We didn't run no man. We ran 2-3 zone. Our head coach in 9th grade was Roger Breda. He was friends with Jim Boeheim. So we ran zone.
And that'll do it.
Yeah, we ran zone the whole time. So we sat there and we're holding teams. Yes, it's 9th grade basketball. We're holding teams to 12 points because kids can't shoot. And so as we go up the ranks, I got the varsity, and David Allen was our head coach, and he he's more of a man guy. He played a lot of man, but he knew in his back pocket that all those kids knew how to run zone very well from the years of ninth grade basketball. And so he would pull it out occasionally, but I want to play man. I want to play. And one of the things that I've struggled with as a head coach is, I was born in New Jersey. I grew up in Georgia. I grew up playing basketball outside of the blacktop against people much older than me. Probably hearing words I should not have heard as a young kid. But you learn basketball in such a aggressive style. You're going to guard your man. Your guy can't score. If your guys keep scoring, then you ain't gonna play anymore, right? And so it's this mindset of, I'm going to stop you. We're coming after you. And so I get caught up in the game, and that comes out of it like, hey, we're going to lock these guys up. We're going to man up. And like last year, I was thinking, I got to be a little more fair to our guys. I'm asking guys to lock up. Like, that ain't what they're going to do. They can't do it. So they just can't do it. And I want to so bad, because I feel like, especially in high school basketball, if you can be the aggressor on a defense and not foul, not be, you can really set the tone of a whole basketball game. But I like zone, but zone, sometimes kids find ways to be lazy in zone. So I'm conflicted a little bit on that. But we're gonna play man and we're gonna play zone. We'll play both. We'll play some 3-2. We'll play some 2-3. We'll play man. We'll play a sagging man. We'll play a man where we're taking away your best player. We're face guarding him the whole court. And we have played it where we'll face guard two of your best players, not going truthfully in a triangle and two. Not going into a box and one. We're just literally taking away a player and keeping man principles the same way. And those things won't change. The one thing that is up to game planning is how much we press, if we zone press or man press, and if we're going to how we guard posts and how we guard the corners of the court. If we're playing zone, there's some teams I'm trapping corner every time. There's some teams I'm rather not, because if we trap corner, maybe they got a 6'5" kid that's going to get it, see over the trap, and hurt us. But we're going to play a spread out offense. I want to take more threes, and we only took 13 a game last year. And our best shooter, so our very best shooter during our season, kids being kids, he broke his hand, playing on the outside kids court trying to dunk. And then,
oh no.
Yeah, right before region play starts. So this is all a region. And then we have another kid who got sick, missed the whole year. And so it's one of those things where, I want to shoot more, but I want to take good shots. And my whole mindset is take good shots. There's no shot clock yet in South Carolina in high school basketball. That's probably going to change in 2 years. Until then, we're in no rush to take no bad shots. So those things I won't change. But still, with this team, when we pick it in November, we evaluate what we got. Just off what I saw this summer, probably gonna lean towards a little more zone than what we've done in the past.
When you're thinking about your game plan and the game planning that you're doing, are you thinking in the back of your mind about what other coaches are doing, looking at film on you? Do you kind of go for that process of like looking at your own film and thinking like, I wonder what like these coaches might be seeing or might be thinking based on what they see on our film? Does that go into your process at all?
Not really. I'm just hoping that they're watching the film and they're not thinking, man, these guys are not coached well at all. Yeah. No, but it's one of those things where we always prepare for what if they do this to stop what we do. And I know offensively, off the rip, we play games, one of our best shooters of this year is a junior. And so when we play region basketball, they know him by name.
Oh, yeah.
They know him by name. So I know to get him shots, it's not going to be the conventional, hey, stand in this corner and catch and shoot. They're not letting him get that. So we will use that. We'll run them off a double screen. We'll run them off a single screen. We will also use their own method against them. If you're going to stop him from getting shots, then we're going to drive on his side and put you in a predicament. You're either being help side or you're giving up a shot. Now the other thing is the maturation and development of the player. They take away your catch and shoot. They take away your ability to have that shot, that set shot. How are you going to hurt them? What are you going to do? And so, especially the summertime and the fall, we put the onus on the kids to really develop their game. And really, the time that we spend, we have a basketball class. We lift for 45 minutes, and we are working on stuff, and I want them to feel comfortable in their skin. But it's one of those things where, people are going to game plan for us. Yep. We're going to be all right. I feel like we'll have answers for what they do. But if we stay true to what we do first, we want to play, we have a slogan called FIT. That's how, it's on our shirts, on our hoodies. And it's fast. We're going to play fast. So we're going to play intense, and we're going to play it together. And so if we stay true to the F, if we play fast and hurt teams from the ability of getting back on a defense, of getting easy baskets, then we're going to be fine. If we're going to be intense and if we're going to be intentional about the sets that we run, that knowing if I'm screening for my teammate, I'm screening hard. If I'm rolling hard. I'm putting stress on as many defensive players as possible every single time, then we're going to be fine. If we play together, pass up good shots for great shots, and if we're willing to make that back cut, if we're willing to do the little things that are going to help, if we're willing to sacrifice this crossover step back I've been working on that looks good for, if I swing it 2 more times, I got a guy that's going to get a layup, then we're going to be fine. So if we stay true to our principles, they can game plan all they want, but we should still be fine. And that's why I tell them, trust what we do. Just trust what we do. I don't wake up early in the morning and get my kids ready for school and drive them to daycare and come to school and work an 8-hour shift and game plan during school and at home and come to practice to lose basketball games. I don't do all that. Like, I'm not going to put you in a situation to lose, but trust what we do and do it on the FIT principles that we have. And, we should be fine if, no matter what their game plan is against us, if we're empowering every player to play their best and stay in those principles.
Yeah, and I think it's hopefully something kind of reassuring for especially like newer or younger coaches who might be listening about, they could be really overwhelming, right? The process of looking at all the film and trying to break all this down and make it something that is manageable for their players. I think there's some like comfort level to, also just making sure that you're staying true to like what it is that you believe and what it is that you do, and understanding that like you don't have to like blow up your team philosophy week to week, right? Because you have principles that you stay true to. So what would you say to a coach who's maybe like new and they're like, coach, like where do I even start? Like what do I even like do when it comes to looking at film? If you had like a brand new coach or somebody who's new to looking at film, what would be like a couple of steps you would tell them maybe to try and get them on the right path?
So the first thing I always do is I watch the whole game and don't write a single thing. Just watch a basketball game. Your natural instincts will pick up on things that you'll see. So the first time, you don't have to watch the whole game. I'll watch like the first quarter and a half, and then I'll skip to the mid third quarter, watch the mid third quarter, and I just want to watch a basketball game. I'm watching as a fan of basketball first, and then I'll run it back. And because when you run it back and break it down, you're taking your time. It's a longer process. And when I go and I break down the film, first thing that you want to do is you want to know what they're going to run on defense. Know what they're going to run. Mm-hmm. Because you want to have bullets in your gun to be able to have to win that battle as you're playing, right? On the other end, offensively, it's sometimes tough to pick up on people's sets if they run it different ways, because, that's a new play. Well, no, that's really the same play. They can just start it from a different spot. So the thing is, I'm not too necessarily worried about sets unless I see it 4 or 5 times, right? If I see it a bunch of times where they are running a set, then I got to know, all right, when this kid does this, that means this set is coming. Let's stop this set early. Let's jump that first pass that they make every time. Or let's face guard this. We played a team last year who had a set. It was a pretty nice set. It was such a nice set that we waited until after we played and then we stole it and started running.
Yeah.
So it was a very simple set. There was 2 guys at the free throw line and a guy up top that's bringing it up. And it's pretty much, they're getting your eyes just enamored with the ball being passed up top, and then there's a literal back cut into a back screen, and then they swing the ball to a wing, and they have a post entry pass. Well, it's a simple set. It's not hard, and for them, it was a way to get their best player the basketball. And so you learn those two or three sets that you see a whole bunch of times. And so once you learn their defense, you learn some sets offensively, they run a whole bunch of times. If they're a team that presses a lot or press the whole game, force to identify man or zone press, and then have at least 2 ways to beat those presses. So, because, we played a team a couple of years ago that every time they scored, they were in a different set. A different press. So they were in a zone press this time, a man press, a different zone press. That's hard. That's hard because you have 10 seconds to get past half court. You're spending 3 seconds trying to figure out what the heck they're in. And then you're getting guys in the right spot. So have something that will beat pretty much all zone presses. And that may be hard to find. And then have something that will take care of a man press. So at least it should take you 2 seconds to figure out if they're in a zone or man press. And then at that point, you have a default that kind of beats any zone press. That will give you time to tell your guys, hey, if they run it again, let's run this. And then step 4 is, of course, the inbound plays. These are all things that, can really swing a basketball game. Getting having a press that works and they're getting easy baskets, having an inbound play that they get 6 or 8 points on inbounds plays, those points matter. So being able to stop those inbounds plays from the easy basket and make them go to option 2 or 3. And then after that, I go into, hey, let's look at let's look at certain players. Who is their best dude? Okay, so for me, I'm looking at the team aspect first. And then after that, I'm looking at who is their best dude, what does he like to do? How do they get him the basketball to score points? And then who is their second best dude? Who is their third best dude? Who is their point guard? There was a game that we played last year that we opted, the coaches, because I was like, let's face guard their best player. And my assistant coach said, Coach, I think that we should face guard their point guard. Because if their point guard can't get him the basketball, if the best player has to be the point guard now, he's going to get less shots. That's what we did. I said, all right, let's roll. And their best player was so frustrated because he was doing something that he didn't want to do. He had to create offense instead of having offense to create it for him. And even though their point guard was averaging like 4 points a game, he wasn't a scoring threat. He was an initiator threat. So now they could initiate offense. And so figure out who those key cogs are. If they're a team that has a real big, how do we get this guy in foul trouble? What can we do on the opposite end to get him involved? If he's slow feet, put him in a pick and roll, make him have to guard an outside player, and do your thing. I'll tell our guys this. If he's in the post and you can't handle him, see if they'll give you a call. I'm not saying every time, but I'm saying put your body in a position where your head may graze the side of his arm, and you got elbow right in the face. That's what you make it look like. And you put the referee in a situation where where maybe because of that call, he has to play it a different way. And so
you're getting the player's head too.
Yeah. And so you look at those things, and the most important thing, and a thing I had to learn after my first year, do not do it by yourself. That's not the weight for the head coach to carry by himself. If you have a staff of guys that you can trust, last year, I had an assistant coach that worked at the school. That was my right-hand man, because we would play on Tuesday. I'd wake up, so on huddle, I don't go and pay for where they break down your game and put the stats in. I do that by myself. It gives me a chance to rewatch the whole basketball game and put in things for stats. I'll have the non-huddle stats from him by the time I walk into the building the next day. Nobody's asked him to do it. He just hasn't. And so then I'll share those stats out with the whole team in our group chat. And then I'll say, hey, official stats will be on huddle by this time. And so, and then when we're playing that next team, he will give me this 4 hours later. He shoots me a text. Hey, this is what I think about this, and this, and this. So now when I'm watching film, I'm reaffirming those thoughts that he has already given me, and then I'm adding to it. So do not break down film by yourself. If you have a coaching staff of 3 guys, yourself included, so 3 people, break that stuff down so they can come back to you with a report of, hey, you asked me to watch their presses. This is the presses they ran. This is some of the things that the opposing team did that worked. We may need to look at that. And that way you aren't bogged down with having to have all of the answers. You ask these people, for the most part, some schools you just get gifted with the coaches that you have to work with. These are the people that are going to be sitting next to you on that bench. And so trust them to do work. Trust them and ask them to do work, not for you, but for these kids. And most times they're going to do work and they're going to do it the right way. And that's going to allow you, like when my coach says, hey, they do this on the inbounds, I don't look at the inbounds. My coach already told me what they do. I trust him. Mm-hmm. So I'm not looking at that anymore. I'm moving on to something else. So there's a little less food on my plate to eat. And so now I'm working on the presses. And if another coach says, hey, coach, they've done this on a defense, I'm not looking at defense anymore. I trust him. I trust his eyes. Now, I'll still watch that whole game, and I may pick up on 1 or 2 things more, but I trust those guys to do that, and I'm not going to do that.
And I think that's one of the big traps sometimes I know that new or young coaches fall in, is this pressure to feel that they have to do everything, and they, it's their program and their team, so they have to be in control of, every single thing, and they don't want to delegate, or there might be hesitant to delegate a little bit, but you have a staff for a reason, right? Like use them, and it's your call at the end of the day, but they're going to bring different perspectives. They're going to have different insights and things that you might not see. I've been in situations before. I've been fixated on one particular thing and thought it had to be done, and then somebody else brings up a different perspective, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense too. It just sees it differently. Go ahead.
And the other thing is, I'm 29. I got 2 kids, a beautiful wife, and I'm just like, dude, if I come home and open my laptop immediately and all I'm doing is working and that's it, and I'm not, being a dad and being a husband, yeah, I'll have a lot of time to game plan divorced. I'll be by myself. So I got to be available at home too. So I got to trust my guys to do some work for me. And this is the thing, when we do our practice, they are the ones that are saying it to the team. They did the work, so they're going to do the presentation. They're going to do the game planning and practice. That's something I can step back and practice and trust that it's going to be coached right, and they're going to explain it, and they're going to go through it, and they're going to run this drill that has to do with it. And I'm going to sit back and be like, all right, what else do I want to cover at practice while my coach is covering that? What else do you got to delegate some so you're not worn complete out, because it will be the 20th game of the season, and you're in the heart of region play, and you feel mentally exhausted because you've worked yourself into a sense of, craziness. And we're all competitive. I work like crazy, but I love doing it. But I also felt my first year, I got towards the end of region play, and I just wasn't as sharp as a coach. I wasn't as sharp. I felt myself having to think 3 or 4 times to get something I wanted instead of having it there. And that's because I was mentally exhausted. And part of being a head coach is you do build that mental stamina. But I was exhausted, and I figured out I got to do a little bit less as the year goes on, so I have a lot more towards the end. So trust your coaches. Trust your coaches.
Yeah, and gives them something to do and helps them buy into the program and everything too when they feel like they're actively contributing and actively have a say and a voice. Keeps them engaged, and that's great
Absolutely.
too. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions I ask every guest. I'm going to go ahead and start with this first one here. Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a coaching moment of yours that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
God, I got a good one here. I got a
Okay,
good one here. I'm telling you, I can almost guarantee that you've never had a person on your show that had their career start off like this.
I'm ready.
So first game of my career as the guy, as the head coach, excited. We're playing our rival, a big time rival. And so the past 5 or 6 years we've split, and previous I was a interim head coach for one game, and we won that game against a team that we had never beat. So, at that point I felt very, very confident I could be a head coach. So flash forward 3 years later to being a head coach. And I do my old pregame stuff. Well, our starting shooting guard, everybody's getting dressed in the locker room. I'm writing stuff down on my clipboard to go over during my pregame talk. And my assistant coach comes up to me and says, "Hey, well, we got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "Your starting shoot guard didn't bring his shoes." I said, "What do you mean he didn't bring his shoes? Like just his game shoes?" So homeboy doesn't bring his shoes. He left it. And I'm very teased about guys pack your bags during the class. So when you leave, that's like you're just leaving and you're grabbing and going. He's wearing tennis shoes as I speak. And he says, Coach, I can't play basketball in these. So he doesn't dress. He didn't play because he forgot his shoes. I said, "Oh wow, this is great." So I do my pregame talk. Well, blah blah. The players go. They're on the court. They're warming up. I go back in the locker room. I get some quiet time. It's just me. It's my first game. I say a little prayer. I get my head clear. Walk out of that locker room. My assistant coach comes back out there to me. He said, "The referee needs to see you." I said, "Bro, what are we doing? Like I just was in the locker room. I haven't been on the court yet." Referee comes up and said, "Hey, coach, we got to give you a technical foul. One of your players tried to dunk in pregame and grab the rim." I said, "You're kidding me, right?" He said, "No." I called that player over and I ripped him. I was like, "You are kidding me." I said, "First of all, you've never dunked in your life. Why are you trying to dunk in pregame?" So now, per rule, I cannot stand up the whole entire game. So I had to sit down this whole entire game, can't stand up. We play this game, and I'm thinking this is probably the worst start ever. It can't get any worse than this. But wait, there's more. We played the game, blah, blah, blah. The game is back and forth. My best player in that team, he finished that game with 29 points and 13 boards, played really well. But we got out of a timeout. It's the fourth quarter, and we got out of a timeout, and the opposing team came out with 4 players. And I was like, "Miss Ref, they only got 4." And he said, "Oh, that's all they got left. The rest of them are fouled out." Okay, I was like, all right, this simple. Well, then there's another foul call on them. Well, now they're down to 3 players. Would you believe that we had to go in overtime with these guys? We went into overtime. It was 5-on-2. They had another player foul out. It's a 5-on-2. The referees figured, "Oh, they got 2 players." Well, it's a 2-point game. No, it's a 2-point game. We're up. There's 10 seconds left. How they got the inbounds in, the world may never know. If everybody just guards the inbounder, there's no way he get the ball in. But he gets the ball in. He runs down court. He's out of control, and he runs into one of our guys. The referee calls a blocking foul and gives him 2 free throws. He misses both free throws. Coach, they got the offensive rebound. This is like I'm sitting on the bench, dumbfounded. They hit the offensive rebound. He makes a layup. They force overtime. We're in overtime. We go up 4 points, and they have scored. This kid, he ran down and hit like a fadeaway 3. It was ridiculous. I looked over to my assistant coach. I said, "These kids, my players, will not be on the front page of the newspaper losing up 5 kids to 2 kids. That's not going to happen." So for the last minute, 30 seconds, we played keep away, and the fans are absolutely berating me. We're at their house. Let them play. What are you doing that for? Y'all got 5 players. They got 2. What are you doing? Whoa, whoa. I was just like, y'all, keep throwing the ball around. Do not turn the ball over. I do not care. And that's at that moment. They always say block out the crowd, but that's at that moment. I learned you really do have to just like do whatever it takes to win a basketball game and block out whatever that may be. Because there was probably coaches that will say, "Hey, we got 5 kids, they got 2. Let's just play." No, because I don't want. We're going to win this basketball game. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what they say. The one thing they can't call us are losers after this game. So block out the noise. Trust what you've learned. Believe in your kids. Empower your kids, and have fun doing it. The kids gave me a game ball afterwards. Oh, your first career win. I was like, y'all, this was about to be the worst day of everybody's life in here. So be very fortunate. And just know we are running to start practice tomorrow because we cannot start game with technical fouls and forget our shoes to play a basketball game. So but that was a fun game. But I did learn a lot about just handling handle the situation. Each situation in basketball is different. Handle each situation individually, clear-minded, and do what's best for your kids.
I can say with 100% confidence that you were right. I have never heard that story before, and I'm very happy you shared it. I can only imagine when that game went into overtime.
God, I got home and like I need some wine right now. I need to relax. This is stressful. This is rough.
Oh goodness. Well, oh boy. Wow, I will probably never forget that story. So awesome. Thank you for sharing. To wrap up, Coach, I give every guest what I call a 60-second soapbox, but I don't time you, so feel free to go longer. Platform for you to kind of get out a final thought, a closing message, kind of a final idea that you want to leave the listeners with. So I'm just going to kind of turn it over to you, Coach, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Well, first off, thank you for having me. This was super fun. I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time, and so I was listening to your last one yesterday about collaborating with your coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So I thoroughly enjoyed podcasts. This was really fun. But one thing, especially for new coaches, and I'm in year 7 of being a 2-sport. I used to be a 3-sport coach. Now I'm a two-sport guy. First thing is don't forget your family. In all this, be a coach, be a teacher, be hard, be great, be excited, but also be dad. Be for female coaches, be mom, be at home and be present, be husband, be wife, all those things. And so enjoy the time that you have with those kids, but also be there at home to kind of, not leave them on the backside. Also, another thing, if you do have kids, I have 2 young kids, involved in as much as you can in what you do. My daughter's first months on earth were spent with her at practice. So my wife was coaching basketball at that same time too. And she was either in her baby carrier or strapped to our chest while we're coaching. So involve your kids. She's at pretty much almost every basketball game. She goes to football games. My son is 6 months. He goes to basketball games. When we go out and watch our baseball team play, he's there too. Involve your kids in what you do and have fun. Coaching is a challenge. Sometimes it's a drag. Sometimes it's going to be a bad season. It's going to be frustrating to be there, but don't cheat the process. Don't cheat it. Treat every team treat every team fairly and individual of itself. Don't compare your team to past teams. Try to keep that team as essential to themselves as possible and really push your kids. Your kids don't know how good they can be until you let them know that they can be that good. And your kids don't know how far their bodies can go until you put them in a situation where they have to make a choice to push themselves there. So challenge your kids, trust the weight room, trust the classroom, and most importantly, trust yourself. You can do it.
Very, very well said, and that was awesome, Coach. Thank you, and thank you so much for coming on and spending some time talking about your program, coaching philosophy, game planning, whole bunch of stuff, and of course that story you shared at the end, which now I'll never forget for the rest of my life. So for everything, Coach, you're a busy man. I know you got a lot you are doing. So thank you for spending some time talking to us. Best of luck with the rest of football season. Best of luck as basketball season. I know it never ends, but as basketball season really begins here coming up. So, Coach Exume, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was fun, and best of luck to all the coaches that hear this or coaches that are going to be on this podcast. Best of luck to y'all season, and thank you for having me. This was great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.